Cool. Hello, everybody. This is the Helpdesk Hangout, number 97 here. My name is Michael Klein. I'm with Be Found Online here in Chicago, and I'm going to be hosting today. So, like usual, just figured we'd start with introductions and go from there. So I'll start on the left side of my screen, and we can move forward from there. So, Andrew, Drew?
Oh, well, first of all, can you hear me?
Yep, Kevin.
So that beats my last time I was here. My name's Andrew. I work for a big digital agency called Digitas LBI. But I've been doing SEO for 13 years or so, maybe 14. So I'm old.
Nice. Arthur?
Hey guys, my name is Arthur. I'm working for a company called Gabriel's Technology Solutions based in New York. I'm an SEO specialist for them, and I'm in SEO business for 10 plus years.
Fantastic. Barry?
Hey, I'm Barry Schwartz. I help people get lots of comments on their Google Plus posts.
Awesome. Wissam?
Wissam Danda from Daytona Beach, Florida, SEO consultant and co-founder of GrowthPage.
Super. John. Got John on the call today.
Hi, I'm John Mueller. I work at Google.
Super. I think, yeah. Robert.
My name is Robert O'Haver. I'm a SEO consultant with Internet Ad Pro, also the founder. I've been doing SEO for 10 years.
Great. And then I think we had Don just join in the middle of the introductions here.
What was that?
Hey, Don, just doing introductions here, so just wanted to see if you could...
Okay. Sure. I'm Don Halbert. I'm the founder of Inbound Marketing Group.
Super. Cool. Well, I've got a few different topics here that I have on my list to bring to the conversation. But as usual, I just wanted to open up the floor to everybody to see what kind of problems we might have encountered in the last week, and see if there's anything that anybody wanted to call up. Anybody, or is there something I can launch right into?
Any problems? For some reason, my image on my authorship went away.
Well, why don't we just go ahead? Why don't we just go ahead and start there and get that out of the way then? So I'm happy to pass it over to Barry to cover that news a little bit.
I should cover it? Fine. So some Googler out there went ahead and posted something in Google Plus saying that authorship is going away. Not authorship, I'm sorry. The image in the circle counts in the search results powered by authorship is going to disappear. Authorship will still remain. You can still click on the guy's name and go to their Google Plus information. But the image, which we thought, and AdWords told us that increases the click-through rate, is going to go away. Google's representative who relayed the message basically said that that image didn't really have, or the authorship layout didn't really have much of a change in the click-through rate. And they just want to go ahead and make it more consistent across mobile and desktop, and also simplify the user interface to make it cleaner. Because of that, Google is slowly rolling out an update which will remove all the images from authors as well as circle count. Although I think Google News will still have a thumbnail, a small thumbnail of the author itself. That being said, the Webmaster community is kind of upset about that. One is because they feel it still will have an impact on their click-through rate, even though Google says otherwise. Two, because they invested the time in doing that because they thought it would have an impact on their click-through rate, and now they probably would not have invested the time, although I think they probably would have because it was live for, I think, 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Something like that. So I think they still would have done it anyway. 3 is actually concerned about implementing other things, in my opinion, like app indexing and other new features that Google releases, because Google constantly tests things, lets them go out for a little bit, then removes those features over time. There's several rich snippets that they've done that with. There's lots of features they've done that with over time, and obviously they have to constantly innovate because they have to test things, but at the same time, not all webmasters and businesses have the resources to put a lot of effort into certain things. Although authorship is not really a big effort. Anyway, but that's the concern around authorship removing images from the search results. So we should probably take a poll and go down the list and see how people feel about that. Although there is a new Chrome extension that adds it back, but again, nobody's going to add that. So
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess like Barry said, maybe we should just jump right in and see what everybody thinks about that. I mean, initially, I mean, it's kind of upsetting to me. I mean, I think that we probably all agree that it does have, the images probably do have an impact on click-through rates, despite what Google's telling us. But in some ways, it was refreshing to see it, gone. I mean, I've seen a lot of spam, in Chicago, especially if you even do like a search on SEO Chicago. I mean, it seems like authorship wasn't being used, in my opinion, in the right respectful manner that it was intended for all the time. People were using it to increase click-through rates on pages that really shouldn't have had authorship, attributed to it. So that's why.
But was that the reason Google removed it? I don't think so. Not at least.
I don't think that's the only reason they removed it, but I mean, I think that was certainly. It wasn't. I would say that.
You could ask John.
Yeah. Yeah, John. Why let's have a direct answer.
We didn't really remove it because of the abuse. I mean, that's something where theoretically we have a lot of practice with. Sometimes we can handle this kind of abuse really well, sometimes not so well. I think with authorship, overall, it worked out fairly well. I had very few people who kind of escalated authorship spam to us. What I did see is a lot of people putting authorship on pages that make no sense, like a contact us page or a map or those kind of things where you look at the page and there's nothing that's being authored. But again, that's not really the primary reason why we're removing that. It's really just to simplify the UI, to make it more consistent across desktop and mobile, so that it's kind of a consistent UI there. And as with all of these changes, these aren't things that we do lightly where we get together in the evening, drink a little beer, and say, hey, we should remove some pictures, or hey, we should change the color of the links to green. These are things that are really evaluated quite a bit. And we need to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So we're constantly innovating, constantly trying to find ways to improve things. And sometimes that means new features come in. Sometimes that means some features change or they kind of move out.
Interesting. So what does everybody else think about that? Does everybody, I mean, what is everybody feeling like, I guess, the impact's going to be on properly authored pages?
I think the authorship debate actually reflects really badly on the SEO community. I mean, taking it away, that affects us all equally, but we were the community who said Google Plus is pointless, Google Plus is dead, and nobody uses it. And then when the authorship's taken away, we're the community who says, oh, I want it back, I liked it. And if we can't see past Google Plus as an SEO click-through tool, then I don't think we're able to see the point of Google Plus as a whole. I think that's really quite unfortunate.
So we actually had a couple other people join during that. Maybe we could bring Baruch into the conversation here. We're actually jumping in and talking a little bit about the impact of the changes in authorship and displaying of images in search results.
I'm shocked. It's making me feel different. I don't know. I'm speechless when I heard about it, the first time. So,
yeah,
I mean, now that the authorship is gone, again, the authoritative, it's now how do you separate, just as that example that was given a long time ago when Matt Cutts was giving that example, that article about Barack Obama, is that kind of the whole thing kind of brings me to think now, how would the users know who's who?
Yep.
Am I wrong? I don't know. Am I wrong? I feel like everybody's kind of silenced here.
Well, I mean, the names are still shown, and we do still use authorship. We do still process it. We still kind of keep track of that per page. So it's not that authorship itself is gone, but we just don't show these pictures. And I realize changes like these are frustrating if you worked hard on getting them in there, and maybe you had the problem that sometimes the images showed up, sometimes they didn't. You finally got them to show up consistently. I realize that's frustrating when that kind of goes away, but at the same time, things are constantly changing on the internet. What was like the state of art maybe a year ago or 2 years ago when we introduced these, where maybe we did some studies back then, probably isn't the same as if we did a study now, or if someone else externally did a study now.
I'll give you an
Things
example.
always change.
A client saw me, and then when we met, he said, "Oh wow, yeah, that's you in the little snippet there on the search engine." So that alone, I'm not saying I'm going to lose sales, but I'm saying that alone kind of sold it as well, because he was going through all the posts, you know, and so yeah, that's just one, you know, one example.
I think that's actually
John,
perspective. Because no, go ahead.
John, you took this out. What do you bring in new to compensate?
I'm not aware of anything specific that we bring there, like in the form of images or something like that. I think it's good to kind of unify the UI so that it looks similar on desktop and mobile. That's something where in the past things on mobile have looked quite different. So making them a little bit more the same is probably a good thing. I don't know if there are plans or what the plans are, because I'm sure there are plans to improve things and change things again. But I'm not sure what the plans are, what we could share there.
I love your shirt, by the way.
Yeah, it's a good one.
So Andrew has a good question. I've seen this asked around. Does this also mean that publisher markup with the company logo is going to go away as well? That's obviously used more in the knowledge graph area.
That was the best.
Yeah, that's still around. That's something that connects to your Google Plus page. We don't show that directly in search like authorship, but we do use that to kind of connect to the knowledge graph, like you said, and to understand which Google Plus page belongs to which website. But that's kind of completely separate from the authorship side of things.
So I'm sure you guys did some crazy A/B testing in regards to this before the removal. I mean, it's not an easy thing, an easy decision to go ahead and make, right?
There were 2 times when you guys dropped it completely for like a 75-minute to, I'm sorry, for like an hour and a half to 3 hour period. I don't know if that was by accident or part of a test.
I think that was just a bug. Sorry, no conspiracy theory there, no test or anything. But I mean, we're constantly doing tests. If you do a search on Google, you're going to be in tens or even 100 different tests at the same time. And those are constantly changing as you're searching and as you're interacting with Google. So these are things that are constantly being tweaked and constantly being tested by the engineers, by the UX team, to see what we can do to kind of improve the search results so that people recognize the high-quality content and they go there and are satisfied with what they find.
John, so there's 10 Lady Gaga websites, and so people, I mean, so we have to get creative then with the title tags and the meta tags right now, right? I mean, to let the user know, hey, this is the real person, right? I mean, it's going to be...
Yeah, I haven't actually looked at the Lady Gaga search results in a while.
Well, an example, like high-profile clients that, you know, that are being, there's about, you know, 50 websites about that, you know, specific person.
Baruch, you're again, authorship was not supposed to be used to classify a website. It's supposed to be used on blog posts or articles that the person wrote.
Absolutely. That's what I'm referring to.
But publisher is what would be used in that case.
I'm going to give you an example. If Cher's writing a blog, people want to know that that's the real Cher. That's what I'm.
Still says by that
Their name
person.
still shows up, yeah.
Yeah, but.
Yeah, but can be 10 people with the same name, right?
Like who's who? I understand what you're saying, but anyways, so.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I think we could probably continue with this part of the conversation for a long time, but I think we should probably move on. There's been a couple other questions and certainly some other things happening. So, in efforts to moderate here, I'm gonna try to move us forward. So, hey, we had a question actually posted to the Hangout thread before. I think it's actually a good topic to jump into here. It's actually from Neil Cheeseman, and it's he was actually asking a little bit about. He had a specific site example, but really, what I think the root of his question was is he's seeing some suspicious links that his site didn't build. There's a lot of them coming from the same domain. The question really comes down to, should he go out and do a preemptive should he go out and do a preemptive disavow list? So I think this brings up a good conversation around really how to get ahead of potentially either a negative SEO or really just natural situations that could cause problems on sites. So I guess to directly answer Neil's question, my response would be, and I'll go ahead and post this in the chat window as well too. But my response would be to Neil, yeah, you should go ahead and definitely address links that you find suspicious on your site. If we've got 2,000 links coming from a site called streamica.com that you don't know anything about and don't feel like is consistent with the quality of your site, I mean, the first thing would be to obviously try to go ahead and get that link removed naturally. But yeah, I would definitely follow that up with potentially doing a disavow if you feel like that site's creating a big risk. I'm going to go ahead and post this in here, but I'm wondering what anybody else thinks of the same situation.
I refuse to remove links to my site.
You refuse to?
Yeah. If you want to link to me, link to me. I can't sit there and worry about what other people are doing. I have to worry about what I'm doing.
That's an interesting perspective because, I mean, frankly, I've run into some situations here where we've had to get ahead of link review for some bigger brands. I mean, it's just too much risk sitting out there, and without any assistance in link building, no matter how bad or good we feel it is, there's been penalty issues that have come up.
I haven't had a penalty, and I'm a big target. People hate me. Ask this chat, everybody here, they all hate me. But no, I'm joking. The truth is, again, I think if you're worried about it, there are plenty of tools, even from Google. Everybody who's paranoid about it, just look at Webmaster Tools, click on the link to download the latest links, and look at it once a week, and just go through that. Whatever you dislike, disavow or ask them to remove it. But I don't really care about it. I don't spend any time looking at it. I know at Search Engine Land or Search Engine Roundtable or even my own corporate, company, Rusty Brick, I don't look at my links. I just don't bother with it.
I have clients that just have their stuff on alerts, and I have to go and remove them. So I do like 10, 15 removals per day.
That's crazy.
Custom made, manual, all manual. I call Belgium, I call Hong Kong, I call Taiwan, I call ridiculous places you've never heard of on this continent that you guys would be shocked. I mean,
I think it's overboard.
That's overboard.
Well, I'm done with disavow. I mean, this is the only way to do it. You have to do it the real way.
You're just doing it through that. That's interesting.
Well, keep in mind that's part of his job. That's part of his job is to do.
No, I am DMCA. I don't go to them. I am DMCA. I do my own DMCA. I have my own DMCA here. It's all custom made,
Very interesting. What's everybody else's thoughts on this? I mean, we're doing them. I mean, the way that I've approached this is more on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, same here. I think that's insane to spend that much time a day on disavow stuff.
Anybody else have a feeling about that? It's interesting.
I don't know. From my point of view, I think if you're looking at this and you find something that you think is problematic, you can fix it with the disavow tool. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So if a year later you're like, oh, I don't know if people have been building negative links to my site, and I should have taken action when I saw that. If you just take care of that when you see it, I think that's always a good strategy. At the same time, if you have a normal website, for the most part, you don't have to go out and actively search for that all the time. Like Barry, I think a lot of businesses, if they have a reasonable website and they're doing reasonably normal search, then they don't have to check their links every week to see if there's something weird happening there. Because there's always spammers out there that scrape links from the search results, that put them into forums, that add links to I don't know what other sites, where they think maybe if I put a good link in between all of these spamming ones, it'll look like this whole block is kind of good, and your site gets linked like that. So it's something we kind of have to deal with regularly with our algorithms, and we try to make sure that these kind of things don't cause any problems. At the same time, if you know that there's like another SEO active for the same website, and you see that all of these links are coming in and you don't know what they're doing, then that's something where you might want to talk to them and take action to clean those things up so that they don't cause any problems later down the line.
Most of them send me a message, hey, I'm really sorry, I didn't know this happened, and they remove it. So at the same time, you help Google clean up the web.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's just auto-generated that basically is just cruft on the internet. Someone leaves this forum open, and there are scripts out there that just recognize that version of the forum software, and they go and register 5 million accounts and start posting. And that's not something where we'd say you have to take action and clean that up, or where the webmaster has to take action and take down his website, or block all of the spam and the internet. We kind of have to deal with that because it just happens all the time.
John, correct me too if I'm wrong. Google's not going to red flag something unless you, over a week, turn up with 20,000 links or something ridiculous like that. I mean, it's not so minute that you get 5 or 6 links from a bad site and Google's going to red flag you. That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, our algorithms try to look at the overall picture, and if the overall picture is fine, then individual bad links that are just like happening randomly, that's not a problem. But at the same time, if you're worried about this and you see this in your links, you can just take action and you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to lose sleep over, should I have this about or should I not have this about? If you know that these are bad links and you see them, taking action is fine. That's kind of like if you know that your website has a broken homepage, fixing it is a good idea, even if it doesn't result in your website being penalized.
Right.
Interesting. Cool. Well, that's interesting as well. So thank you. Don, I think you had a question that you had typed in the chat box. Do you want to share that with us?
Sure. I think John might be the perfect one to answer this question. First of all, last week I was on. They did a site review. I wanted to thank everybody for their input because it was extremely valuable. And when I went to over everything that was said over my notes and everything, we started correcting all these points that were isolated during that conversation. I discovered something, and I wanted to know how, for example, the URLs were being rewritten correctly. So if we had hotels, so we have the root, and then we have hotels / the Westin, for example. So the URL is correct. It is a hotel. It's the Westin. But when I did this HTML sitemap, the way that the sitemap was coming out was completely different. It was putting packages in front of everything because of the custom post inside of the theme. I couldn't get rid of that packages. So the way it was root / packages / hotels / the Westin. That's very concerning, and now I have my engineers working on changing the entire template to get rid of that. But my question is, John, is how would that, first of all, I better say that currently Google has a very difficult time indexing the correct pages on this site. They always seem to get tags or blog posts instead of the actual specific page for hotels, for example. So my question is, to what degree, if any, would that affect Google's ability to crawl and index the site?
So basically, you're saying you have a HTML sitemap that has broken links in it?
No, it's a WordPress site. So what it's doing is the way the theme operates is it has a custom, I guess, I don't know if it's post, because this is what the engineer is saying we're going to change it to, but it puts only in the HTML. The URL is writing / hotels the Westin. So the URL is rewriting correctly, but when I go to the sitemap is adding this packages in front of it. Should I just post in the window, in the chat window, the URL for the sitemap?
Sure, yeah.
I mean, it could be in your plugin. I mean, are you using like all-in-one SEO, or are you using Yoast? What are you using?
I do have Yoast on there, and it's very minimalized because I also discovered that Yoast, even though you say use default, no index, or for example, authorship, no show,
Okay.
it doesn't work. Actually, I wanted to let everybody know that. Not all the time does it work. Sometimes, last week you guys pointed out that it looked like authorship spam going around on that site. So I went and looked, and it was set for default no, but in fact it was actually showing.
It could be something in the settings, like it's basically what, spitting out like all these crazy URLs, or what? What are you concerned about?
The biggest question I would like an answer from John is how this impacts Google crawling the site and indexing the site, because for the life of us, for 8 months now, it just can't grab the right URL, the correct URL. So for example, the root URL /hotels should rank for the hotels in that country for this particular site, but it'll go and grab some blog post or something instead, or worse, a tag. And when I discovered this HTML sitemap, I was wondering how this can possibly impact it.
Okay, I took a quick look at that, and it looks like those URLs are at least redirecting to the right ones, so I don't think that would cause any significant problems. That's something where we find the wrong URL first and then see the redirect to your preferred one, but that's something that can happen. It's not something where we'd say we demote a website for having kind of like redirects in their links. That's not really that bad.
Okay. It's just strange, like, for example, we do have packages. We sell packages. So my concern is everything seems to be classified as a package according to that HTML sitemap, and that bothers me because I want to distinguish between packages and hotels. But you say it's not really a concern?
That shouldn't really be a problem. So we find those links on that HTML sitemap file. We'll follow them. If they redirect, that's fine. If we find content there, that's fine. That's not something where I'd really worry about that.
Okay. I like to minimize my redirects as much as possible, I'm sure. But okay, thank you very much.
Somebody asked me on Twitter what to do when penalized spam site 301s to my site. So if somebody has a penalized site and they 301 it to your site, what do you do?
Just use the disavow.
Does that work?
You call me.
Okay, Baruch.
All right.
I mean, I think you just go ahead and use the disavow at that point.
Does a disavow work on a 301?
That's a good question.
Again, let's ask John.
You'd need to disavow the links to that site, but usually we catch these kind of situations fairly easily. That's not something where I've ever seen any problem being caused from a redirect like that, because it's not a normal site move. It's just some random person redirecting their site to yours, and that happens. I don't see a big problem with that. For example, a lot of, I think, park domain sites, they sometimes have it set up like that. So your park domain redirects to their main domain, and if there were a problem with that, then they probably complain about that as well. But I don't see anything where that's ever really caused any problems.
That would mean that who is data is quite important, right? You have to identify that it's a random person, not the site owner doing the 301.
Yeah, I mean, usually if you have a normal website on your domain and it's been there for a while and suddenly something 301 redirects to it, then that's fairly clear to understand. That's not something where we'd say, oh, this person is moving his website that was actually never at this other location to this new domain, which actually had content the whole time. So it's kind of fairly easy to recognize.
Is this stuff on the record?
What?
I can quote this stuff?
I think you're recording this, right?
It is. It's live. It's recording. I just don't want to. This is more informal than the ones you do in the mornings.
Yeah. I mean, these are things that aren't necessarily new. It's not like it's the first time that some spammer thinks I'll 301 my burnt domain to my competitor.
Sure.
But
We've had to deal with this forever.
This is the problem with transparency, though. I mean, one possible takeaway from your kind advice is, if you did want to do a negative 301, a negative SEO attack, you'd have to make your website look like your target. You'd have to have some synergy there, and then you would 301 it. So to Google, it didn't look like a random person; it looked like a related person. But I'm not encouraging that. I'm understanding why
I think that's a very theoretical situation that I've never run across.
Well, we are a theoretical industry. That's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, people have been 301ing their burnt spam sites to other people's websites since forever.
What about a pre-burn site, though? If your intent is...
That sounds kind of complicated.
Yes.
I don't know. That sounds like... Yeah, it's almost easier to just make your websites better than to kind of try to build this complicated construct of this website that is completely new that I'm going to build up to look like my competitor and make it look legitimate, and then I'll turn it into a spam site and 301 it. It's a lot easier. Just create a better website.
All right. Well,
I got a
go ahead, Robert.
question coming in from someone. They want to know. This goes back to guest blogging. If you have your author tag at the bottom of the article you're writing, and obviously follow all that stuff, but they want to know if they have a bio on the site that they're guest blogging on, is it okay to link to their site with a do follow from their bio as opposed from the article?
I mean, if you're doing this only for those links, then that's kind of an unnatural link, right? It kind of depends on the overall intent, I guess. But I guess you'd have to look at the individual situation to see how that's kind of working.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it not the case the minute you say do follow, you've lost the situation, right? If you're talking about do follows, it's no longer a natural link. Shouldn't be counted.
If you're placing that link yourself and it's on someone else's website, then that's kind of unnatural. That's kind of like you're going to their website and putting a link on it. I don't know.
All right. Well, cool. Hey guys, I'm gonna move us on. Actually, I appreciate it, and John, you're getting the ringer here. So, but I did have one other discussion that I wanted to bring up, which is just a little bit separate from this, and I think it's a good one to maybe take some of the pressure off John and open this up to everybody. But we can jump into current events after this and get a little bit of an update on stuff that doesn't have to do with authorship. But one thing that I brought up a couple of weeks ago with Matt is kind of a larger topic to bring to this phone call, and I think it's interesting, is talking a little bit about drop-down navigations, mega navs, and how we feel about their use today. So, again, I can lead off a little bit of that conversation. My traditional SEO technical knowledge would tell me that it's really not the best situation, given the concentration of links, given the user experience issues with it. But we do see situations where sites work, and I can actually then toss it right over to Barry, because certainly Barry's making the use of a drop-down nav, mega nav on what's his site again? Does anybody? Oh yeah, SEOroundtable.com.
Yeah.
And but I mean, it's definitely in use there, and Barry obviously knows his stuff, and it's a different opinion about it than I'm used to.
So you don't like the drop-down menu?
It's not my favorite. I mean, it's a drop-down menu, especially when it's starts to expand into what we could start to call a mega nav.
So on an SEO basis or usability basis?
Both. I would say SEO basis primarily, but
wow, because it's basically just our main navigation. It's CSS. It's not like Google can't crawl it or index it. It should be very indexable. It's just our main categories.
Right. I guess the concern from our end is is as it starts to go on other sites, especially large e-commerce sites or something like that. Do we feel like the concentration of so many links in a navigation appearing on every single page of the site is taking away the the ability for that page rank for certain terms to grow?
Honestly, I don't. Go ahead.
I think Google's pretty smart at figuring out what the navigation is versus what the main content is, and they probably take that into account. That thing, this is navigation links. These are main body links and stuff like that. I'm not Google. We have a Google person here who could probably give the exact percentage weight of each link. You know, if it's 2% or if it's 4.5%, but I can't do that.
Michael, I think when it comes to those type of mega menus you're talking about, I think not even from an SEO standpoint, I think it should be concerned about a user standpoint. If it makes sense, then do it. But I don't see an SEO value between the two.
Interesting.
I think, I mean, I'm going to use a phrase that Eric Wu always uses, which basically usability always trumps SEO.
Right.
So from that point, so look at it.
It's a good point. Hey, why don't I open it up to Ben? Actually, Ben's on the line from. He's actually from over here at Be Found Online. Even though it says Dan on his name, he's not Dan.
I'm in fact Ben. This is something we've been Michael and I have collaborated on a few sites in the past with this idea of really kind of like focusing our internal links and the ones that we see being the most important for a particular page, and avoiding this idea of the super nav as a way of just decreasing the amount of noise we're giving search engines. So that's kind of like what we had thought about it as far as we like to reduce navigational elements and have more of the actual links, more of the actual links that are relevant to a particular page on that page, rather than in the have every page on the site have about 99% of the same links. We found it to be, maybe it's more of a UX thing at the heart, but just again reducing noise and painting a much clearer sort of picture in the source code.
Yep, that's kind of how I feel. Like Ben and I said, worked on these together. I guess maybe why don't we toss that at John? What are your thoughts on what we're discussing here as well too?
I totally missed the last part.
I mean, I think there's, Barry. One of the things that was said, and I think Wassam's right, is like UX first always, and I think that's a good way to look at it. That being said, I definitely don't shy away from making the right recommendation. Certainly UX is the concern, but at the same time, on extremely large websites, when there are a ton of internal pages, having a really large mega navigation, I generally guide my clients away from.
Yeah, so we would generally treat something like that like boilerplate. So essentially, we'd look at these pages, we'd say, hey, the same navigation is on all of these pages. The same footer is here, the same header, the same sidebar, all of this is kind of boilerplate on these pages. So we'd focus on the main content there, and we wouldn't put that much weight on the boilerplate. So if you have a lot of links in there, if that works for you, fine. That's not something where we'd say this would cause any big problems. What I kind of shy away from is having a website where all pages are linked with each other. So if you have a giant navigation and basically every page on the whole website is cross-linked to everyone else, then that makes it really hard for us to understand the context of these pages. But it also usually makes it a little bit more complicated from the usability side as well. But from an SEO point of view, if you cross-link like that, I don't see any problems with that.
I guess the sort of idea that we have sort of moved to is this idea of, rather than having all of the navigational links as part of the top structure, rather building more focused links for the the subcomponents of a particular page or the top level category, and kind of working its way down to sort of get away from what you're calling like the boilerplate situation, and they're more tailored to the individual pages within that section. Is that still something that would be more ignored, or is that kind of looked at as more of a a better approach?
That sounds reasonable. Yeah, I think that could definitely make sense. probably depends on the website itself, and for some sites, you'd still have some amount of boilerplate there, like the main navigation categories or something like that. Definitely the footer would probably be the same. The same situation arises with a lot of legal websites that have a really big footer on them. So if you're selling stocks or something, or a lawyer or medical website, you probably have this big footer on the bottom that says, oh, blah, 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 legal advice and blah, blah, blah. And that doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to be your main keyword and we're going to rank your site for that. We'll recognize that it's boilerplate and say, okay, it's not that important. We see it's on here. We could find it in search if we wanted to, but we're not going to say this is the main keywords that this site should rank for.
Exactly.
I have a question about drop-down navs, and in particular, at least some drop-down navs on desktop work with the on-hover principle. So you move your mouse over the main category, and then the subcategory unfolds. And that makes perfect sense on desktop. But on tablet or on smartphone, you don't have a hover. You've got to actually click in order, or touch, in order to produce a drop-down. So do you think we are moving towards a future where on hover is quite dangerous? It's almost accidental cloaking in a way, because a large percentage of your visitors won't ever see the drop down because he can never hover over the area.
That's a great question.
I mean, we wouldn't see that as cloaking, but I think there's a lot of usability questions around that, and there are probably a lot of things that you guys could discuss around how you would like to have your websites work on mobile. And I don't know how on-hover even works on tablets. It's a good question. No idea.
It doesn't. It is essentially hidden text.
Well, we program that, and the client wants the on-hover, and they want it to. They have to do like a tap, and then a tap, and then a tap. So tap on the first, expands it. Tap on the second, expands it. Taps on the third, expands. It goes into it. Whatever it might be. It's not the best UI. You should definitely look for a different type of interface for that. But Google's working right now, and John can confirm it. If you put your finger close enough to the screen, it feels the hover on the phone.
Yes. Well, I mean, you laugh, but Samsung does have that capability, and you put your finger near a Samsung Galaxy phone in order to scroll down. You can move your hand down. I think technology sometimes outpaces spam rules, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is an interesting conversation as well, too. I mean, just kind of bringing it full circle from the beginning. I mean, when I hear something like, and it seems like a lot of the changes that are happening at Google now are certainly to try to make a more, just a better formed environment between the mobile, between tablets, between desktop. And I guess this just makes me question, if we're saying that large drop-down menus are okay, but we can't even interact with them on a mobile or a tablet device, what's Google going to start to do, in potentially the near future with people that have highly optimized drop-down menus for desktop, but people don't get that kind of experience on a mobile site? And in that case, if I'm thinking like I think that Google does, I would say they're not giving me a good web experience, so why would I rank that high?
Yeah, but you're using a different menu when it comes mobile. I mean, well, if it's a responsive type site, but
right, ideally if it's responsive, but in that same situation, that responsive site's not going to have a drop-down menu that's responsive the same way. It's going to look the same, but it's not going to have the same features.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if there's an answer to that, but it makes me a little nervous.
I think it's an extraordinarily interesting point, because one of the great things Google does is Google rewards best practice.
Yep.
So if your site is fast, tick in the box, or rather, if it's not slow, you avoid that, not tick in the box. If it's good for a mobile, tick in the box. And the recent rules around retargeting list for search advertisers. So if your remarketing campaign is sophisticated and it's working, then that's the tick in the box for your PPC. But mobile is just where we are now. If you look to the very near future, we're going to have a whole different UX set of rules for connected TVs, for example. And on hover would work particularly well for a connected TV, where you don't want to click lots. You might be using your hand or a navigation pad, and if the menu opens up as you drive around, that would be quite good. So I don't have any insight into what Google's doing here, but I can imagine it's quite a dilemma for them as to whether they want to reward us for our best practice, as they have done for speed and responsiveness, for a set of technology that exists today that might not be as prominent in the set of technologies that exist tomorrow.
I think that's something that might come at some point. At the moment, we just see that there are just so many websites out there that do a horrible job on mobile that we're kind of at the point where we're saying, first, let's filter out those that do a horrible job, that are essentially Flash-based sites that don't work at all on mobile. Maybe they have unplayable videos. Maybe what kind of other stuff do we see that basically just don't work? So, for example, you click on the desktop site and it redirects you to the homepage of the mobile site instead of to the page that you actually wanted to go to. And these are problems that are essentially preventing users from using these pages at all. And at this point, we're basically filtering or flagging those kind of pages first to at least filter the really bad stuff out and make sure that users recognize that. And at some point, it probably makes sense to try to figure out which pages are really good on mobile and which pages are basically an old table-based design where you have to zoom in 5 times to see what you're actually looking at.
Okay.
But that's almost a step further away. And I think that's something where websites can differentiate themselves regardless of the search results, where if you have a great website that works really well on mobile, then people are going to remember that. At least I remember from my experience when I use things like Google News, when I use search, there's some sites I know if I click on them on my phone, they're just not going to work. So I just avoid them. And that's something that I think takes a little bit of time, but where you have a lot of potential if you do the right things, if you make a really speedy and really well-made mobile site, you have advantages over people who essentially block their users from even trying to get into those sites.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a good one is also Page Insights. I love it. And so if I'm above 80, I'm okay, right?
I think yesterday at I/O, someone from PageSpeed Insights actually gave a presentation, and I think he said above 80 on mobile. Yeah, something like that.
Okay, good.
So
Cool.
that's good. I mean, there's some usability aspects built into the PageSpeed Insights tool, which are also great, like the size of the links, the size of the click targets, those kind of things. That's definitely a good starting point, but I think for the majority of the websites out there, even just using your site on a mobile phone is a big step. Like recognizing that your site is terrible on mobile because you can't fill out the order form because for some reason you have like 20 fields and then it cancels and you have to start over again, type the whole address again, type your credit card number again. All of these things, you're essentially blocking users from even trying to take advantage of your mobile site.
Interesting. Cool. I think that was a good conversation.
Definitely still a fair share of those out there.
Awesome. Well, we have about 12 minutes left here, so I think we should, I think the mention of Google I/O is a good one there. There's obviously been a lot that's happened this week, so thought maybe I could pass it over to Barry and SearchEngineRoundtable.com to maybe highlight a few of the current events from this week. So, beyond the authorship stuff that we already discussed, kind of cool stuff that we've seen.
As a disclaimer, I do not pay for this, so just a heads up. Okay, a couple things.
PR.
I'm sure Google's very excited about their Google App Indexing. So now they made it easier, and there's also built into Webmaster tools a way to debug any issues regarding adding deep links or app indexing specifically around your Android apps. So again, if you have an Android app with a lot of content in it, and somebody does a search from their Android phone, and you do app indexing properly, and the query matches with relevant content within your app, it might go ahead and rank. The app content might rank in your on the search results, and you click on it, it will actually take you directly to an app that's on your phone, deep link. So Google's pushing that big time. I think in a few years, Google will probably ditch it, and you'll probably waste a lot of your time, but for now, it's probably worth doing. Sorry, I'm just joking. There's a lot of buzz around this PR Newswire thing. So PR Newswire basically went ahead and released a press release announcing that they are issuing new quality guidelines for their, I guess, press release editorial team. The reason they're saying they're doing this is they actually mentioned Panda 4.0, and their site, according to search metrics, got a huge hit by Penguin 4.0, where they lost, according to search metrics, about, I think it was like 63% of their SEO visibility. Wow. And after that, they went ahead and scrambled. I assume they're in conversation with people at Google. Okay. And anyway, they're basically went ahead and issued new quality guidelines so that they can actually go back into the past press releases to try to get rid of the bad quality ones, and also go in and make sure no new press releases are actually included in the new. Sorry, no new press releases will actually be allowed to be ordered through the whole process if they don't have original content, don't have templated content. They have to have templated. They can't have templated content. They have to meet a certain length. I don't know what that length is, but it can't be too short. Mm-hmm. And they can't have overuse of keywords or links within the message. Obviously, there's a major impact to their business, both the traffic loss as well as them having to reject certain types of press releases. I don't know if they're still going to charge a fee just to submit press releases and not return that fee if they don't meet the quality guidelines. I'm not sure how that will work, but I assume a lot of their customers will, at least their spammy customers, will go away, and I assume a lot of their customers, I don't know, percentage, I could throw out a number, 3%, 5%, I don't know, I have no clue, but I'm sure there's a nice number of people that use them, or companies that use them, that used it specifically for trying to trick Google, and now that Google has taken action on their site through an algorithm, I assume, not confirmed, they had to go ahead and issue these quality guidelines. So that would be interesting to see how quickly PR Newswire could recover after doing this process, and what type of impact it might have on their revenues going forward. I think they are a public company. Not sure. And if so, we can actually track that. But yeah, was interesting news.
Interesting. Baruch, did you have anything you wanted to add to PR? I know that you...
Yeah, I mean, so basically, John, I mean, I guess if it's only a publicly traded company and they have to do this PR, should they still be careful? There's just a lot of publicly traded, like I have a lot of clients, that...
yeah, I mean, in the end, it's their website, and the content that they're publishing is the content they have to kind of like stand up for. And even if that comes originally from other people, they're publishing it as their website. So if the overall quality of the content isn't that great, then that's something that they're providing on the web, that they're providing for a search engine, where maybe our algorithms would look at that and say, it doesn't look so great overall. And it's always tricky for us when part of the site looks good and part of the site looks really bad, because then we don't really know when we run across something new on this website, is this good content? Is this bad content? Can we kind of trust this webmaster to provide us something really fantastic, or do we have to be careful here? So that's something that comes into play. Sorry?
Maybe you should look at the authorship of the pieces.
Because I see a lot of PR, like just, we signed a deal with this guy and we signed a deal with that, and it's like, who cares? Nobody really wants to read it, I mean, so I
don't know. I mean, sometimes these things can be interesting to read, but maybe it makes sense to be kind of maintain this content a little bit better, in the sense that you say, okay, this is interesting for a week, but not really interesting after.
Yeah, but if I'm an investor, I'd like to read it on their homepage, right? Isn't it better? Would you suggest to publish it on the site?
If you have it on your own website and you think that's great content, fine, yeah. I mean, I don't know of anything that would prevent you from putting your own press releases on your own website, right?
All right. I agree.
I think what Barak is saying is if they put it on their website and then they put it at the PR site, doesn't that flag, Panda?
Well, not necessarily. So just because it's duplicate content doesn't mean that it's bad. we try to treat that as a technical problem and say the same text is on this page as it is on the other page. So we have to kind of like figure out which page to show if someone is searching for that general page. But if someone is searching for something specific, where they're maybe saying PR and then some generic term, then maybe it makes sense to show that text on the PR news website. But just because it's duplicate content doesn't necessarily mean it's low quality. But of course, if the whole website consists of duplicate content and there's a lot of really low quality content in there as well, then that's something that kind of adds up. It's not like based on these individual articles where you'd say, oh, this is copy, therefore it must be bad. And sometimes there are also technical and legal reasons why you might have to duplicate some content on different sites.
Cool. So we've got about 4 minutes left here, so I thought maybe we'd move on from here and maybe get into one last current event topic that we could wrap up with, probably, or two.
Me?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Barry.
There's a lot of topics. I guess the right to be forgotten stuff has been starting to roll out. Google has been enforced by the hand of the EU court to remove stuff that people have submitted, so that's interesting to see. And it's going to constantly tweak over time. On the SEO front, it was interesting to see in CNBC an article written by them about a old, I think, lady who ran a recipe website for 17 years, got hit by Panda. It kind of reminded me of the what's it called, the Florida days back in 2003, 2004, where all these, like the article title was reminded, Google's secretive updates leave small sites scrambling, and talks about how the Panda update destroyed the business and this old lady is now out of business and so forth. Just reminds me how important it is for people to keep thinking about diversifying and improving, because if you go to that website, it's just so dated. And the article really puts a lot of blame on Google as well as Webmaster herself for not doing certain things. But it's just you gotta go ahead and constantly innovate. You can't just sit there and just wait for something bad to happen. So that was interesting. Google's now back into the domain registration business. So now, if you don't register your domain names with Google, you will not rank well.
There's
That's the best takeaway from this call yet.
I wonder what Bob was thinking as soon as that news came out. The owner of GoDaddy, the former owner.
I heard. I think
GoDaddy just put their $150 million media pitch. I have a tender. I'm sure the timing is a coincidence, but there you go.
Yeah, I think one of the major domain name registration stock dropped like the day after they heard that. But right now, it's just a test Google's running. They said they're just trying it out. It's like a Gmail invite type of thing. It obviously has no impact on your rankings, and Google has said that, even though there are a lot of domain name registration companies that pitch the SEO importance of keyword-rich domain names, and the amount of phone calls I got from investment companies after Google announced that, the what's it called, the EMD update, the exact match domain update, and how it's going to impact the bottom line for domain name registration companies was pretty funny. But outside of that, I mean, it's.
So now the question is, should I buy from Google or GoDaddy?
You can't buy from Google, so unless you got an invite. I think John can give you an invite, maybe.
Please, John, I need some .cas, .nets.
If you want to buy from Google, just talk to John. He can tell you which domains are getting rank 10 from the beginning.
And from what I understand, you have to buy paid ads too, otherwise your site won't rank either, right?
No.
It's the combination of all these things together that really does it. Well, I guess.
And just so I can say, I mean, Josh, the ethics and decision theory expert, also an SEO research person, emailed me. He wanted to know if I could ask John if he read his article and if it spawned any internal discussion at Google. I'm just reading the question. You don't have to respond because there's like a minute left, but he asked me to ask the question. I assume John read it, but I'm not going to talk for John or Google.
I'm not actually sure which ones. I mean, I read a lot of articles.
The moral.
There's a lot of stuff being published.
the moralconcept.net thing.
I think I read part of that. Yeah, definitely. It was kind of long.
Okay.
But I mean, it's always good to kind of get hard feedback, even if we think we're doing the right thing. If people don't understand what we're doing or don't understand where we're headed, that's important feedback for us as well. So it's not that we say, oh, this guy is complaining, we'll just like ignore it completely. We have to think about where these problems are coming from and think about what we might be able to do better to make it a little bit clearer what we're actually doing, what we're trying to achieve, where we're headed, where we think things might be going in the future, and how you guys can prepare for that as well.
Yeah.
So this kind of feedback is always useful.
Cool. Well, I'm going to cut it off there. John, thank you. I appreciate it. And I think everybody on the call does. This was a really spirited call, and a lot of interesting stuff came out of here. So this is concluding Helpdesk Hangout number 97. Thank you to everybody for joining and dealing with me today instead of Matt, and he'll be back next week. So appreciate it, and talk to you guys all soon. Thanks.
Thanks.